Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author, and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over, or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Hi and welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you guys who love us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better and more fulfilling and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. I'm glad you joined me today at the Friday Happy Hour. And I have the most interesting midlife reinvention for you. Linda Meyers is here, and she was a school teacher in Washington, D.C. when she and her spouse, George, started a business in Italy, a cooking school. And you know what? The pictures alone want to make me want to go there and eat. So I'm curious to know what Linda did and how she did it, and how it's going along with her spouse. You know how it is when you're partners with your spouse. And maybe hearing your story will give you an idea or two. So Linda will be joining us today. And how are you on this summery Friday the 13th? I'm glad to be here because this is the calmest part of my week. And if I didn't have to go back to work after the show, I'd be sitting across the street at Ryan's having a drink after the show. But probably not scotch because this is my seasonal changeover time. You know how the gasoline changes to the summer blend? Well, I do the same thing with my alcohol. I switch from Scotch Rocks to rum. And the switch used to be to Captain Morgan spiced rum until one day I was enjoying happy hour at a little place in Bar Harbor, Maine. And the bartender made me a dark and stormy and introduced me to Kraken. That's the 94 proof black spiced rum. And now I'm hooked. And I can drink that with Diet Coke in the summer, and it's only like 100 calories a glass. So if I could have a drink after the show today, that's what I'd be drinking. But I have to go back to work. And geez Louise, I can't wait until Monday when Mercury goes direct. Have you noticed all the stuff that has been going crazy these past 3 weeks? You know, and not just politics. For me, it started when my computer started running slow. Like doing crazy, silly things. And in fact, I'd forgotten Mercury. That's how I realized Mercury was retrograde. Because that day I sat at just everything from about 8 o'clock in the morning until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was sitting there ready to pull my hair out. You know those kinds of days, don't you? Well, that was bad. But then the cyberspace fund migrated to my tablet, right around the time all the news about Google and privacy hit, which then freaked me out. And then the stuff about Facebook selling our personal data. And you know, we've been lured into doing everything online, paying our bills, going shopping, doing our banking, and even filing our income taxes, which, by the way, if you haven't done yours yet, you better get it in by Tuesday, or I think it's by Monday. I might be the last person in the world who still pays bills by a physical check. But it's okay, because I'm also among the last people in the world who still uses actual stamps. And the U.S. Postal Service loves me. And I think Hallmark loves me, too, because I send actual cards in the mail, not just a bunch of emojis on somebody's Facebook page. Okay, that might be a bridge too far. You still send birthday cards, don't you? Yeah, and get well cards, too, I'll bet. Anyway, I just had one of those weeks where I kept going from one appointment to the other, 3, 4 in a day. And this morning I looked at my calendar for next week, and it's going to be the same way. The good part about it is that several of those appointments are related to my new book, The 5-Year Marriage, Shifting the Marriage Paradigm. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be at the Marple Library in Broomall talking about and selling that book. And I'll be with a couple of our Friday Happy Hour friends, Kathy Sikorsky and Donna Cavanaugh. Kathy's coming back to Happy Hour in a couple weeks, by the way. And, you know, Kathy always likes to stir things up a little bit when she's here. So we'll see what happens when she gets here. I posted a flyer for that book signing on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. And if you go to victoriouswoman.com, how you find the wrap-up is that you look on the right-hand column, and it's down like a little bit below the fold. And if you do, go there and you have some comments, comment on my blog, because I'd love to hear what you have to say. So anyway, I was running around all week and still dealing with whatever has been causing this raspy voice of mine. And today we're having summer, but earlier this week we also had winter and spring. So you know what I think? I think Mother Nature is having menopause. Her heating and cooling systems are just off. And nice as it is today, it might just be having a hot flash because I heard there's some snow coming. And even the trees are confused. Can't you just hear them talking to each other? They're saying things like, aren't we usually out by now? I'm just bursting out of my buds. And I'll bet they're also saying, I don't know what we should do. Shouldn't we be having allergy season by now? I know, it's just silly. But here's something fun I did this week. A couple of my girlfriends and I went to American Music Theater in Lancaster to see the men's a cappella group Straight No Chaser. Have you ever seen them? They come to this area pretty often, and two of the guys are from Pennsylvania and from this area. Like one's Allentown and one's, I'm trying to think, like near Pittsburgh or something. And they've been at Longwood Gardens, Lansdowne Theater, Sun Center, and they did a long stint in Atlantic City a couple years ago. And I think in a month or two they'll be in Reading, and they'll be again down in Ocean City this summer. Anyway, there were a bunch of guys who started singing together in a college chorus, and then they broke off and they broke off from the chorus and started singing their own little group, a cappella group for like sororities. They said that, they liked being the only roosters in the hen house, which what 22-year-old guys wouldn't. Well, then they graduated and went their separate ways. And when they went back, if I understood it correctly, for their 10-year reunion, somebody posted the rendition of 12 Days of Christmas on YouTube. Long story short, it ended up in a record deal, and now 6 albums later, they have a very loyal following. And that's because they really interact with their audience. When I saw them outside of Sun Center, people were even buying them beers. But it was, when I say outside, I mean it was an outdoor concert. It's the same kind of thing with Lisa Scottolini. And I don't know if you heard my interview with her last week. We had a lot of fun. And I think by next week it'll be up on Victory Chicks Radio, so I'll post it on the radio wrap-up. If people like what you do and they like you, they really appreciate that connection. And that's what Lisa said was her secret sauce for having that kind of following. And Straight No Chaser does the same thing. And you know what? At the end of every show, they line up, all of them, to sign stuff and chat with their fans. And, and they'll sign anything, even your ticket. But here's the funny thing. They all graduated about 20 years ago. In fact, the first time I saw them, they were like young kids, probably early, mid-30s. And they were jumping around and being goofy and stuff. Well, they're a bit more seasoned now, and that's fine. But I noticed, now that they're in that 40s range, so many of them have less hair. And some of them even have a gut. Okay, several of them. And for as much energy as they put out on stage, I can't even imagine that they aren't all bone thin. But, doesn't that happen to all of us? Well, at least most of us. We get older and we lose some things we want to keep, like hair and tight skin, and gain a few things that we don't want, like wrinkles and pounds. But do you notice what I notice? That as I've gotten older, I've lost that. Remember when you used to have that lack of confidence? You're always itchy about something and thinking, things that probably nobody else was thinking about you. Well, I've lost that lack of confidence that I used to have. And I lost that unwillingness to speak up when my feelings get hurt or when I have something to say. Well, of course, I'm a speaker, so it's a good thing I lost that. But, probably some people would be happy if I didn't speak up quite so much. Too bad. And you know what else happened? I don't even care. I used to worry about that, but I don't worry about it so much anymore. And as a result, I have less angst and anger. Do you notice that with yourself? And you know what I gained? In addition to some of those pounds I keep going to Weight Watchers to try to lose, and those wrinkles around my eyes that I keep putting cream on. Oh, and that extra skin around my chin. Well, I gained those. But I also gained more wisdom and more understanding. And I think I'm less judgmental. Those are some good gains, don't you think? I'll bet you have the same experience. There's something good to be said about that midlife stuff. And yes, I'd like to have all of that, the fewer wrinkles and pounds, and the wisdom and less judgmental and all that good stuff. And there's a part of my brain that is forever 22. And I get so annoyed when the 22-year-olds can't see that. But would I trade in what I got for what I got instead for what would I trade in what I have now for what I had then? I don't think so. Would you? Yikes, it's time to go for a break. Well, let me tell you about our guest today. Her name's Linda Meyers, and she and her husband, George Meyers, gave up their careers. They lived in D.C., and they gave up their careers to go cook in Tuscany. Who does that? Well, Linda and George did. They did that and more. So I have a lot of questions to ask Linda, and I really want to know what she's cooking, because I could really feel hungry right about now. How about you? All right, well, listen, go get yourself a snack or some good happy hour, something to drink, and when we come back, we'll be here talking about this very interesting midlife reinvention. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and you're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself, and now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm already hungry for some Italian food. Linda Meyers, welcome to Happy Hour.
Oh, thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm glad that you are. Linda, a couple of years ago, you and your spouse, George, you're a 50-something couple. You were living in D.C., yep. And not quite quietly either. And,
no, we were busy. We were really busy. But, busy, and we were very happy. We don't think we were unhappy. We just wanted to start spending more quality time with the people we loved, and we wanted to start doing something new. So we did it.
Well, that's good. But before we talk about that, you were a school teacher.
Sure. I was a school teacher.
And you taught first grade.
I taught kindergarten for over 20 years.
Oh, my God. Linda, I have to tell you, my background's in teaching. And I could never teach those little ones with the crying and the putting on their jackets. And, oh, my.
They were always happy, they always loved you, and they were never, ever rude to you. So I could have never taught middle school or high school, because I think that's when kids start learning that they can have an attitude. The little 5-year-olds, they just love you.
Well, and I can believe that. I taught middle school. Fourth grade was my favorite. I taught 4th and 5th and 7th. And a big difference. Fourth was my favorite because they're still a little bit young, and they still love you. They used to line up at the end of the day and get a hug.
Of course.
And they weren't.
That is so nice.
Yeah, and they weren't like sassy yet.
Right. The little ones are not sassy. And, it was really exciting for me to have a child come into the room. They're 5 years old. They really don't know how to write their name, or they don't know much about the alphabet and so forth. And then at the end of the year, they leave reading. They leave writing a sentence. And I think kindergarten, you see the biggest growth from the beginning to the end. So that was really exciting for me to watch the growth that happened from September to June.
Yeah, as a teacher, I can really understand. It makes you have that sense of accomplishment, huh?
Yeah, it really is. And it's exciting because the little ones are so excited when they make just small accomplishments. They get so excited. So I never had a bad day teaching. It was always fun.
Very nice. And George was a Washington insider. So, what kind? Did you go to the glamorous parties? Was it? Did you do all that?
Not too many. But George was first of all, he retired from the Air Force after 20 years. He was a pilot. And then he started working in Washington, D.C., and we did go to a lot of fun things, but it was very business. So, it kept him busy, and he loved it. I'm not sure I loved it as much as he loved it.
Oh. He loved all the glitz and glamour, you not so much, right?
That's right.
That's good.
Well, after spending 5 full days with, 24 5-year-olds, come Friday night, you really didn't feel like getting dressed up and going to a party.
Boy, I can really appreciate that. I get that. Every once in a while, Saturday night I'm good, but if I have to go to a fundraiser or something on Friday night,
exhausting.
I know, and you have to put on stockings,
And makeup.
And
get your hair all
I know. I got it, Linda.
Yep, that's where I was, for sure.
So now, while you were doing that, did you travel a lot? Do you have kids?
We do have 2 grown children, and we did travel. We've always been really big travelers, and we've always been pretty spontaneous travelers, like just jump on a plane, rent a car, and hope we end up in a good place.
Now, wait a minute, Linda. How do you do that? Do you decide on Friday afternoon geez, let's go away for a week? How does that happen?
No, we kind of decide that, okay, maybe we're going to go to, like just recently, Spain, and we have a rental car waiting for us, and we plan the trip as far as, we have plane tickets and a car, but we don't really get hotels, and we don't really kind of know the direction we're going to head, and we just went. And that's just how we did. We've always been like that. Short of trips like, Disney World or things that you had to plan, we enjoyed the kind of finding the small villages and not knowing where we were going to eat and hope that we found a good place, and it just was fun.
Linda, I have to tell you this. On my first honeymoon, I went to Canada. My spouse and I took a road trip, which, only people who've never been married before would ever do that.
True.
It was a 2-week road trip, and and the first place we started in Canada, and he was in charge of making the reservation. So we left for 2 weeks with not a single reservation. We went to Quebec. So first night was not too bad. We went to we were in Montreal. We stayed at a hotel for 2 nights. Not a problem. We were in Quebec for 4 days. We stayed in 3 different hotels.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's no fun.
It really was not fun.
And there was no divorce at the end of this 2 weeks?
There wasn't. How dumb am I? Not so dumb. That's a testament to what a good man he is.
That's right. That really is. But, didn't you think it kind of added to the fun? That you really,
No.
No.
The only thing it added to was the story that we had to tell when we got home.
Okay, now the story is a good thing. Having a story at the end is always fun.
It is. But when that last hotel we stayed in Quebec, I said, I am not leaving Canada unless we have reservations for the rest of this trip. Because I was not going to do that in any other, because we had planned to go to, we had 2 or 3 other cities that we were going to. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm not doing this again. I was at a McDonald's on a payphone, this is before cell phones, trying to find a place to stay for the night. So I don't know how you and George do it.
It's really fun, though. I think it's, now, we did not do that very often when we had smaller children. It's when we got a little bit older and started going places alone or just with one. It just, I don't know why we did it, but we always thought it was fun the journey was part of it. And then, we didn't know. So sometimes we ended up driving a lot further than we thought we were, but we always ended up in a great place. Of course, we've had some funny stories where we didn't, and we were, nobody was happy at the end of that day. Yeah. But it was, it did add to the story, and we enjoyed it. So that's how we actually, road trips and taking local road trips or anything that we do. I guess that was part of our preparation for what we're doing now, because we jumped into something that was very unknown.
And I read where you said that your favorite part of traveling was never playing the tourist role, but that you always like to blend in with the locals and learn how they live.
I do. I find myself, even 30 years ago, everybody would be going to tourist shops and buying all the time, and you would find me in a local grocery store, talking to the people. I always wanted to know what the local people did on Friday nights or what was the big excitement in town. And I think when we travel like that, or actually when we did travel like that, we would find smaller towns. We stayed away from a lot of the big cities. Not that I don't think Paris and Barcelona are beautiful, but when you go out into the countryside and find some of these smaller towns, you find so many unique and fun things to do. We have found ourselves around people's tables, just, we didn't know them that morning, but by that afternoon we were best of friends and having a great time, and local, music sessions or in artist shops. So it kind of adds to the fun of travel for us.
Well, and you must have spent a lot of time in Italy, huh?
We did spend a lot of time in Italy. We love Italy, and we still love Italy. And really, that's how we found this fabulous village, and all the little villages around us is just kind of falling into it, going in. But if you don't go down that street or you don't go down that path, you really don't know what's at the end of it. And we were always willing to turn off the highway and just go.
That's good. My spouse and I tend to be like that, and I agree with you. I think you find some of the most interesting things when you really take those little, off-road things.
You do, and I find what's the worst thing that's really going to happen when you get to the end of the road? If you don't like it, you just turn around and come back.
Right.
You really aren't lost. You just make a U-turn and come back the same way.
Yeah.
So, finding these little roads are always fun for me. And George, we really love that. And we even notice our 2 children who are adults now, they do the same thing. They're always out finding something new and exciting.
So this whole thing with this cooking school in Tuscany, what were you thinking?
I don't know what I was thinking. No.
But Linda, I have to tell you, the pictures on your website, and I posted the website on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com, the pictures on your website make me want to go there. Oh,
it's so beautiful. It really is beautiful. And it's just, we didn't know what we were thinking at the time. But you know what? What we did know was we're both from New Orleans, which, is the food capital of the world. Mm-hmm. And our parents grew up in New Orleans, and, there was always a place at the table for anybody. And so food has always been a connector for us. Even when we were traveling, we wanted to go to local diners or local restaurants or, a local grocery store. And I guess that really, when I think back on it, that's what directed us into the food business, if that's, kind of what you want to call it. And the fact that we can connect with our food, people can make their own pasta or we can make our own sauce and enjoy it while we're doing it, and come out with a great outcome of us all sitting around a table enjoying our company and the food. It's just really perfection for us.
That's really neat. And do either of you have any Italian ancestry?
My husband does. George does have ancestry back in Italy. Excuse me. His grandmother was first generation. And there's kind of a unique thing, because when you're growing up in a family that has roots in Italy and so forth, we kind of have an idea of what Italian is. Mm-hmm. And then we started spending a lot of time in Italy, and even though it's connected, it's very different. And it's very exciting for us, because we thought, we knew how to make sauce. We knew how to make, eggplant. We knew this because George's grandmother had taught us all this. But, it changed when people came to America. And now we kind of see both sides of it, and it's really pretty neat.
That is pretty neat. Linda, we have to take a break, so let's everybody hang in there. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about, I really want to find out how Linda and George did this, because it's like such a crazy idea that turned out so well. So everybody stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Linda Meyers, and we're talking about cooking in Tuscany. And you know what, Linda, I was thinking at the break that my grandmother was also first generation American, and my mother had all these rituals and all these things. And then my brother married a woman whose parents came from Italy in the 1950s, and it was and my sister-in-law used to say to me, "Your mother keeps talking about this is like the old school." She said, "The old school, that was the old school from like the early 1900s. My parents even think it's old school."
It's so true. It's so true, because, it's so different, but it's the basics are the same. But we had so much fun, George and I, figuring out, where these traditions came from and how they changed, because it is different. It really is different. So I always laugh when people tell me, I grew up in an Italian family. I don't have to go to Italy. I just think, really, you really should, because it's so different. But Linda and maybe this is just because I'm in the Philadelphia area and my mother and father grew up in South Philadelphia, but we never called sauce. No, that's right.
We always called it gravy.
Gravy. Red gravy.
I didn't even know gravy was brown until I was out of high school.
Exactly. And George's grandmother was just like that also. But, if you go over to Italy, of course, they do. The first thing it is it's sauce. It's not gravy. So, it's kind of funny, though.
But I'm not changing.
It's interesting.
Linda, I am not changing.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't change either.
So listen, how did you make this thing happen? You're in, tell me if I'm saying it wrong, Montefalonico?
Montefalonico, yes, we are.
So how did you find that? How did you start the school? How did you get the money?
It actually kind of happened by when we made this decision that we were going to really change the path of our life. We loved Italy. We decided that was where we were going, and we started inviting people to come along with us. And then it grew to some more people, and then it grew to more people, and now it's 350 people a year.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time. Our daughter works with us. We love it. We love doing it every week because it's like Christmas for us, you know. Everybody always asks us, like, don't you get bored doing the same thing? And the answer is always the same, no, because every week we have a different group of people. And each group looks at things differently. So it's so much fun. We love cooking with the ladies of our village. They have so much fun doing it. We roll pasta, and I don't want to get you too hungry, but we roll great pasta every morning, and we make a lot of gravy.
Well, that's good. And you know how it is really all about the gravy.
It is all about the gravy. But you know what's so fun about it is people are always surprised because they expect us to put all of this heavy sauce, gravy, whatever you would like to call it, on top of the pasta. And, you know, they don't really do that in Italy. It's a very, very small amount because it's really about the pasta, not the sauce. And especially after you spend such a long time making all this wonderful homemade pasta, you want somebody to taste it.
Well, you know, Lindy, here's what I was trying to picture. We have a guy locally, Art Roman from the Kitchen Workshop in Paoli, and what you do is when you sign up for one of his classes, then you go and the wine flows very freely, so you know you're going to have a good time. But you know, everybody cooks together, and they cook a course, and then they sit down and eat, and then they go back and cook the next course and sit down and eat. And it's, you know, you're there for a couple hours. So I'm curious, like, what are the logistics of your cooking in Tuscany? Like, well, let me ask you this first. How do people get there? Like, do you, like, how does that all happen? And then once they're there, how long are they there?
So people come on Sunday and they leave on Saturday. Most people come through Rome or Florence, and that's just because we're really close as far as the train goes. You can take a train from Rome, you can take a train to Florence, and it's we send a van to the train station to pick people up or bring them back. They stay with us all week, and we really want people to feel like they're visiting us. We are not a bus tour. We don't hold a big flower and say, look left, look right. You know, we are in and out of the hotel, and people walk across the street to our house. We want them to feel like our guest. And every morning when we get up, we head to make pasta and a wonderful lunch. So we do a lot of cooking in the morning. We go to 5 different places to do that. And we make more than pasta, of course. We make eggplant parmesan. We make some delicious soups. We make wonderful crostatas, which is the delicious, like a tort or a pie with a shortbread crust. And we sit down and we have lunch, and when you say the wine flows, you know, George is in charge of wine, and we taste about 30 wines during the week, and that doesn't include the tastings that we go to. So we do a lot of good wine.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that's interesting. So your big meal is at lunch then, right?
Well, we unfortunately or fortunately, we eat all day. We have a wonderful breakfast.
I would love that.
We have a fabulous lunch. And then we go to a gourmet dinner every night. So I always tell people, you know, they get so worried they're going to gain so much weight. And really, most people come home either staying the same or losing between 1 or 2 pounds. And it's all because everything there is fresh. It is handmade. We don't eat anything processed. We don't have a lot of sugar and a lot of salt. We use a lot of natural flavors. We even go to a farm and make bread, and they grow the wheat, grind the wheat, and we make the bread from it.
Interesting.
So it's really neat. You know, we really get involved in the kitchen. We laugh. We have fun. We have music going. We're dancing. So it's a great morning. And then we do give everybody about an hour or so to rest. And then we head out to some fabulous village. We go to a great winery, or we go dip our toes in the Roman bath. So we have great afternoons, too. And then, of course, we wake up the next morning, we get to do it again.
It sounds really neat.
I know it's a really miserable life, isn't it?
Oh, it's terrible, terrible. So, but Linda, now you and George were having this life in Washington, and then you decided to do this. So how did you, a lot of people say they were going to, they would like to do something, but they can't make it happen. How did you make it happen?
You know, how we made it happen was we made the decision. I really believe that people who talk about it but never make the decision are just procrastinating the decision. And you've got to make that. You will never have enough money, you will never have the perfect time, and the decision will never get easier. So if you really want to change your life, you need to just do it. And we thought about it and said, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Well, George says, what if we lose our house? And my answer was, I'm not that attached to it. The next question was, well, what if we give everything up and then, we live in Italy for a year? There are worse things that could happen to me than just living in Italy for a year. So we just decided we were not going to focus on anything negative. We were going for the positive. We were going to do what made us happy and passionate about things. And when I tell you we have changed our life, it is incredible. It changed everything about us. It changed the way we dress, the way we laugh, the way we smile. And I don't think we were unhappy before. But this has made us just new people. And I heard you say, you loved your 22-year-old self. Well, I still think I'm 22 now. I think I'm just...
I get that, Linda.
I am so passionate about life changing. Just a couple months ago, I was zip-lining through the Swiss Alps, and 10 years ago, I would have never thought I would do that.
Yeah.
But, it's incredible how it's like a rebirth. You just feel so good about things. You change that one thing, and it just leads to change after change after change. And there have been bumps in the road. Everybody gets a bump in the road. But when you look at it positively and you go, okay, that bump happened, let's move to the next, it's okay.
Well, you're talking bumps in the road. What are a couple of your biggest challenges that you faced when you made that decision?
Well, the language was a big challenge. Neither of us speak fluent Italian, but as we kept going and kept trying and worked it out. We first had to have a translator. Then, people started speaking English. We speak a little Italian, and it all worked out. But legally, when it came to legal things, we had to have an Italian translator for us because we couldn't do that. So that was a little bump in the road, or a big bump in the road. Another bump in the road kind of was, we do miss some things back here in the States. We miss birthdays, we miss Easter some years, but we decided when we miss those things, we're going to make up for it in other ways. And we do. We, for example, right now I'm with one of my youngest grandchildren. She's 4 on her first visit to Disney World. Well, 5-6 years ago, I couldn't have done that because I was busy teaching or I was doing something, I was in that path of routine. Now we make up for missing their birthdays by doing other things. So, that was hard to swallow. So you learned to find everybody.
Yeah, you learn to find this other thing that you can do to replace that.
You do, because you were sad that, I'm missing Easter this year. But, we have Easter anytime we want. We can dye eggs anytime, and that's what we do. If somebody wants to dye eggs and it's the middle of July, okay, we're dyeing eggs.
Yeah, I guess you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Linda, we need to take another break. So
sure.
So let's stop here, and then we'll come back, and everybody hang in there with us. And you're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did, and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous Victorious Women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Linda Meyers. We're talking about cooking in Tuscany. So Linda, if I was in Rome or Florence, then I could just take a day trip to your place or stay overnight, or how would I do that?
Absolutely. We have people come and join the group for the day, or sometimes they want to just stay 2 nights, and they join 2 or 3 days. And we welcome that. We think it's great. If you can come and enjoy some time, a day, that's fine with us. We have a lot of people that join us for the day.
And do you make gnocchis?
We do make gnocchi. We do, and it is one of my favorites. I love it. Yes, we do.
It's one of my favorites. There's a restaurant in Center City, in South Philly, and they make something called it's veal percatelli, and it's the percatelli pasta with a veal cream sauce.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yes, it's my kind of stuff.
Just love it. We love making all different kinds of pastas. We make our local pasta, which is called peachy. We make tagliatelle. We make gnocchi. We make a wonderful ravioli. We make all kinds of pastas, and we try to make a different one every day.
What's that peachy thing you just said?
Peachy is a local Tuscan pasta, which is long and hand-rolled, and it's only made with flour, water, and olive oil, because Tuscan food is peasant food, so they would never have wasted an egg or anything or salt in their pasta. And we make that and we hand roll it, and it's really delicious. It's really good.
It's funny that you say that. I was just talking to my cousin yesterday, and we were talking about Italian food, and we grew up. Our mothers were. Our grandmothers were from the Abruzzi section.
Oh, yeah.
So we ate peasant Italian. That's what we really like. And then you go to like a fancy Italian restaurant and they serve these things that you're like, what?
What is that?
I know. What kind of Italians ate that?
I think our guests that come really prefer lunches over dinners, because we do go to gourmet dinners, but they really, what we think of or what they thought of as peasant food is really quite delicious, and that's what everybody wants.
Sure. My cousin was telling me about this one restaurant that they'll put an egg on anything, and they're a pretty popular Italian restaurant. I'm like, what?
No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
Seriously.
They don't even put an egg in the pasta. I know they're not going to put it on top.
Now, you know what, Linda? You've done so well with your cooking in Tuscany. You've expanded.
We have expanded. So we started, of course, Tuscany, and we've had wonderful response to people coming. And then we had a group of people who always asked, like, aren't you going to go somewhere else? We want to go somewhere else. We want to go with y'all. So we love going to San Miguel, Mexico. So we decided to do a class in San Miguel, and we do 3 weeks there. We have a fabulous time. We do organic farming. We do wonderful cooking classes. And I think what's fun about that is, we have an idea of what Mexico is in our head, and then we take you to San Miguel, and it is a complete different world. The food is fabulous. It's actually the number 2 foodie destination in the world this year. And, we have a great time. And then we also have a place in Cuba, Havana, Cuba. And then at the end of this year, we'll be starting our New Orleans cooking class.
Oh, that'll be fun for you, too.
Yes. Yeah. We're really excited about that because, New Orleans is home, and it's going to have a little different twist on it. We're going to make it more like a little bit of a race for you to get through the city to do all your cooking. So we're looking forward to starting that.
Have you ever thought about doing it in France?
Everybody always asks us, they always go, look, Linda, we will follow you to Pakistan, if that's where you want to go. We're following you wherever. And we have a wonderful little following of people who want to be the first. But France, we have not considered doing France because there are so many places in France, and some of them are so wonderful. And we really want to go to places where it's a little, where we can do really local things and a little bit off the path.
So I understand that, and I would think that Cuba is, I guess ever since they opened up the borders for us, that it must be very interesting to see what happens.
It is beautiful. It's beautiful to go to Cuba. And now the food is coming up. It's not, I would not call it a gourmet area yet, but, people are there, and the Cubans are welcoming Americans. They're so welcoming. And they really want to learn, and they really want to have these fabulous restaurants, and the culture is just beautiful. So we really enjoy it.
So what kind of food do you cook in Cuba?
At this point, we are doing the local things with plantains, a lot of things with pork, a lot of vegetables. They do a lot of vegetables and fruits. And, of course, they do a lot with seafood because, Cuba's a Caribbean island.
Right.
So, lobster is just a main course everywhere. Now, it is, Caribbean lobster, not Maine lobster. Mm-hmm. But a lot of grilling, a lot of things with fruits, and it's amazing. We have teamed up with the culinary school there to do a pastry class, so we think that's a lot of fun. Lots of tropical desserts, so it's really fun. And drinks, lots of tropical drinks.
Oh, I'll bet you that's good. Yeah. So you were saying earlier that if there's somebody who's like that, you made it, and I found it when I wrote my first book, Victorious Woman. The one thing I noticed about every woman that I interviewed is that the thing that's changed their life around was making that decision. And you were saying that earlier, that
Yep.
you and George made that decision, and that started everything.
We did.
But what advice do you have? Like, what's the next step once you make that decision? Did things fall into place for you, or did you?
Well, I don't think, first of all, nothing ever just falls into someone's lap or just happens. It takes a lot of work, mm-hmm. and it takes a lot of finding what your passion is. George and I are very passionate about local things, and we love people. So this was a perfect thing for us. But I think, first of all, making the decision is very important. But once you make that decision, you need to make sure that you are following your passion, because it's passion that's going to get you through when you might not be making too much money, or you might have a big bump in the road. But if you're passionate about it, you will get over that bump and keep moving forward.
It's interesting. I used to do recruiting. I ran the corporate university for a real estate company a while back, and people used to come in, and I could almost always tell the ones that, and I did that recruiting, and so some people were leaving their jobs and saying, "Oh, I always thought I'd like to do real estate," and then there were people who really had a feel for real estate.
Yes.
And you could I could almost tell which ones were going to be able to make it long term, and which ones were going to burn out within the year.
I agree with that so much, because doing cook in Tuscany has definitely not burned George and I out. It has actually given us a big breath of fresh air, and it's enhanced our life. If I was doing real estate, nothing against real estate, because I love homes and beautiful things, but I don't have passion to sell people houses. So mm-hmm. I can't imagine that giving me anything to look forward to.
So you were saying about you and George, and I'm right with you with that, but you and George were high school sweethearts.
We were.
And how long have you been married?
We've been married 32 years. And we still like each other pretty much.
You know what? That's really a big deal, because my latest book, The 5-Year Marriage, Shifting the Marriage Paradigm, came out, and traditionally speaking, it would be 30 years for me. Mm. So you're marital partners and you two are partners in this business. What have you learned about partnership that you can share with my listeners?
That was, that would probably be one of our bumps. If I can think of any more bumps, that would be one. We were used to being the boss of our own careers. Mm-hmm. So when you come together and you're building something, even though we wanted to have fun and do things, we had to figure out whose role fit them best. George is not creative, but I am. So he had to figure out, and we had to really talk about it, saying, you need to stay out of anything creative because there's too much stress going on if you're trying to tell me when that's not what your gift is. On the same thing, I'm not logistic. I don't want to know about the bus, what time it's coming, who's going there, what's doing that. That's his job. And in the beginning, I was trying to control that, and he was trying to control the creativity. And once we sat down and said, look, this is my job, that's your job, stay out of it, and we can talk about it, but you're not going to be the decision maker, everything went straight. Everything was great. He knows now, if there's something creative, and he even tells our guests, it's really quite funny because he'll say, everybody here is going to think I'm the boss and I'm not, but you have to learn what you're good at, and that's what you're in control of, but you also have to take responsibility when it doesn't turn out so good. So once we started being really honest and figuring out what our roles were, everything was fine.
Well, that's great, Linda, and we're going to need to go, but how do my listeners find out more about your school?
You can go to our website, which is cookintuscany.com, and from there you can find all kinds of things. You can find the school in Mexico, the school in Cuba, and you can even find our personal website, Cookie Play Travel, that tells you all the fun things that George and I are doing behind the scenes and all of our other travels around the world.
Well, that's great, Linda. This was fun. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour with us today.
Thank you so much. I so enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, and so you Victory Chicks and you guys, did that make you hungry? It did me. So we're getting ready to go, but before we go, I wanted to tell you one last thing. Maybe you'd be interested in it for the weekend. On Good Friday, I went to the movies. My mom would have chastised me for that because we weren't even allowed to watch TV on Good Friday. But, every year it seems that around Easter there's something spiritual uplifting, and I like watching it because it heightens my Easter spirit. So this year the movie was I Can Only Imagine, and it was based on a song by the Christian rock group that I didn't even know before this called Mercy Me. And it was so good that I'll watch it again when it's available to watch at home. So I Can Only Imagine isn't a big Christ movie, so if you're not happy with that, it is. I didn't think it was it's Christian because they're a Christian group, but it's a movie about families and specifically about a boy and his abusive father, and the kid takes off and eventually finds forgiveness in his heart, and it was really good. I didn't know the song before or the group, but I really liked the movie, and I can understand why the song had such a strong following. So, if you don't know it, I posted the music video on today's radio wrap-up, and the link for where it is playing in theaters is playing in 3 theaters around us. And I also posted the link for Straight No Chasers, 12 Days of Christmas, the one that somebody posted on YouTube. Excuse me, and it's really funny. Okay, Victory Chicks and you guys, that's our happy hour for this week. Here's a quote for you now that we're getting to spring, sort of. Maybe it's summer. But it's from mystery writer Harriet Prescott Spofford, who said, "A gush of birdsong, a pattern of dew, a cloud, and a rainbow's warning. Suddenly sunshine in perfect blue, an April day in the morning." So I'm hoping that we're going to be seeing those April days in the sunshine and the perfect blue pretty soon. Thanks for coming today. I hope you'll join me again next week for the Friday Happy Hour. Talk to you then. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.